Okay.
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 Okay, okay, okay.
Okay.
Okay. Hi,
Hi, I'm Jess,
I'm Hids.
and welcome to episode 2
Episode 2.
of Jess and Hids Make a Podcast. Did I almost forget the name of my podcast? Yes. Yes, I did.
Yes. Hi, welcome back to everyone that listened to us last time.
Yeah. If you're listening to us now
Thank
on
you.
episode 2, thank you for putting up with us. Or,
Surviving? No, I don't know. Surviving sounds good, right? No,
Yeah.
that's kind of rough. It wasn't that bad.
Why are you listening?
Why are you listening?
Why
Tell
are you
us.
here?
Why are you here? Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We're
Yes.
not going to question why you're here. We're just going to say thank you and be happy that you are here.
Yep.
And hope you stick around and hope you tell your friends.
So before we get started today, we wanted to tell you guys that we have a Patreon. And
We've actually had a Patreon for just about 2 years now.
2 years last month. 2 years in
last month.
October.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of where we've been writing some short stories, kind of developing our books that we're working on, and mostly now lately just playing some D&D with our awesome patrons. But we're pulling podcast stuff into it. Our patrons are going to get some blooper reels, of which there so much,
Oh, yeah.
so much content there.
And mini episodes. If we ever draw a subject from our little deck of cards, or huge deck of cards, that that doesn't actually have a whole lot of information about it, we're going to do mini episodes about them. And those will be available to our patrons.
And we may also do some deep dives if we have a subject that is just too vast for
Very vast.
the podcast.
I
I could do a deep dive on James deep dive. I can see us doing a deep dive on James Revis
Yes.
because there was so much, but he's fun. We actually did watch The Baron of Arizona
We
last
did,
week.
and they did change some things.
So much.
But I really liked it. I liked how they did it, and I mean, I love Vincent Price.
I love him. He looked like he had a blast with it.
Yeah.
So I'm excited that we watched it.
I was happy to have watched it.
The cats are
They're
attacking the
scratching
door.
the door. Oh my goodness.
They're not used to not being allowed to be with us.
I know, they get so offended at closed doors. Even if there's nothing on the other side of the closed door. Our pantry.
They get very
for example.
offended. Well, they throw all their little toys under the pantry door, so.
Oh yeah, all the mice end up there.
Yeah.
The toy mice.
Toy mice,
To clarify.
to clarify. Dear Lord, if there's a mouse in here, he has got to be terrified with
Oh,
6 cats.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
So
If
he
there
already
is a
moved
mouse
out.
in here, that is the bravest mouse ever. Wow.
Wow.
Or we just have really stupid cats, which is entirely
Possible.
possible. Anyway, back to our Patreon page.
I have forgotten what we're doing. What are we doing?
Speaking of bloopers,
Right? All that's going to be coming.
our Patreon page, we have 3 tiers. We have a $3 tier called the Chaotic tier, a $10 tier called the Wolfborn tier, and a $20 tier called the Blade Dancer tier. These names, for those of you who haven't been following along with us from the beginning, are probably very, very confusing, and Hids will now explain them.
These names developed out of the first book that Jess and I have written together, which is a very, very long book and is back on the editing board because it was very, very long.
Like over
200,000 words. But it's our baby and it will come to light in the future. But in the Chaotic, Wolfborn, and Blade Dancers are all kind of groups that are in this book.
Yep.
I can't go into huge detail, or that will be this
yeah,
episode.
that can be a whole
That could be a whole
episode.
Yeah, we'll have to episode ourselves. Wait, talk about ourselves.
If you would like to know, though, we do have our Patreon post archives that actually goes into detail about them. So become a patron to read more about Chaotix, Wolfborn, and Blade Dancers.
Each of these get various rewards as you increase. We do mailings, we do postcards, we do some little merch items for our Blade Dancers. They also get sneak peeks of they got the sneak
Writing.
peek of the title of episode 1 before it released. they got a lot of little sneak peeks here and there. And we also do twice monthly YouTube live chats that we call Tea Time. And we will just talk about whatever
we want to talk. It was Tea Time was sort of the precursor for this podcast because we would talk about random things in our tea times, and those were like the funnest tea times ever.
So much fun. And I think several of the topics that are on our list in our deck of cards are from tea times.
Yeah, there was something else I was gonna. Oh, the tea times are available to both Wolfborn and Blade Dancer tiers.
And then at the end of the month, we do an all-patron tea time that is open to Chaotic, Wolfborn, and Blade Dancer, which are our 3 tiers. And we have a lot of fun on those as well. We get people popping into our YouTube and chatting with us, asking us questions, and just being generally kind of silly, unedited, live bloopers.
Live, unscripted silliness.
So, yeah, if you'd like to show your support, you can join our Patreon.
Please do. You can find us at patreon.com/JessandHids.
Da-da-da-da!
And we'd like to give a shout out real quick to all of the patrons who are supporting us right now. There's 48 paid members.
So we're going to run through the list really quick.
Yeah, you go first.
Okay. Justin V.
Alan H.
Alessandra B.
Amanda.
Amy K.
Candace V.
Carrie D.
Kat T.
Colleen H.
Emily M.
Jill S.
LB.
Mary Michelle.
Melissa M.
Rob L.
Sarah H.
Shitra F.
Sheila S.
You mean Sheila G? What?
I'm sorry, Sheila G.
Stacy B.
Steph S.
Sue M.
Tom L.
Allison M. Or Kat as I call her.
Amy A.
Ashley H.
Kat P.
Catherine S.
Lizzie N.
Faith L.
Jim and Jamie.
And Cohen.
And Cohen, their dog.
Jennifer C.
Julie R.
Caitlin F.
Hi, Caitlin. Katrina D.
Kimberly G.
Mandy C.
Mo R.
Nicole B.
Robin B.
Will and Kimberly R.
Brandy S.
Ernie H.
Joanne V.
Kirsten S.
Lori W.
Hi, Mom. Louisa S.
Melinda S.
Last but definitely not least, Sarah S.
We love you, girl.
Hi, Sarah.
Sarah just keeps us on track with our scheduling because we are the worst.
Yeah, we enlisted her help, I don't know, a couple months ago.
Yeah.
It was like early October.
Yeah.
When we were like, hey, you know what? We need
help.
She keeps track of our to-do lists.
Which is awesome.
And she's like our biggest cheerleader.
Which is awesome. We need a lot of validation.
Yeah.
So that's our current patron supporters, and we love you all so much. You guys have been with us and have heard us talk about this podcast for almost 2 years now. We've been talking about this, and here it is. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you for your support, and we hope to have new friends along the way.
Yay. Spread the word about us, by the way.
Yeah. Go tell all your friends.
Yes.
Well, do you want to get into this?
Yeah, I guess we probably should.
Let's get the dice.
Dice. All right. Oh, man. I want to go first this time.
It's you. It's me.
I got
Okay.
a 5.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. Oh, no, I'm not ready. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Close your eyes.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Picture yourself standing on the edge of a high plateau looking over a deep red stone canyon. A sparkling blue-green river tumbles over rocks as it snakes to the bottom of the canyon. Green fields dotted with tall trees and clusters of bushes spread from the banks of the river. Open your eyes. Do you still see that image?
No.
Did you see that image in your head?
Oh, yeah, I did.
Okay.
Is this...
Do you know what I'm going to talk about?
Yes, I do. What's the word? Aphantasia?
It's aphantasia.
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 This is fascinating.
I love this because as I was reading those words, I could picture this imagery.
Yeah.
Which was Canyon de Chelly.
Oh, yeah. I was like, hey, red rocks. I bet that's local.
Yeah. Aphantasia is the inability to form mental images of real or imaginary people, places, or things. And I didn't know this was a thing until someone randomly said, oh, I don't picture things in my head when I read books. And that blew my mind. Like, how? How do you read a book and not immediately know what everybody looks like and the descriptions and everything? Like, everything comes to life.
Yeah, it's so weird to me. I picture everything in my mind.
Everything in my mind. But this is a legit thing. It was actually described in the late 1800s by Francis Galton in 1880. He first described this in a paper on mental imagery that was published in 1880. He said, in addition, that noting that people experience various degrees of vividness when describing their mental visual imagery, he also reported that some people experienced no visual imagery at all, which to me, again, blows my mind.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is the term aphantasia was only coined about 9 or 10 years ago.
Whoa.
Up to that point, it didn't really have a name. He just described this.
It was a thing that happened.
It was just a thing.
Didn't happen.
And most people that have aphantasia don't really know they have it. I watched a TED Talk, and I love the way she explained this. She said, we are all alike. So we have hearts that pump blood, lungs that process oxygen. We have brains that think. So we always are like, I am a person, you are a person, we are all alike. And I know that's very generalized.
I mean, in the very basic sense.
In the very basic sense of it. But she said learning more about aphantasia is kind of breaking the boundary of how we think like that, because people don't think the same way. And again, the very basic meaning of the word think, just how we process the world around us.
Yeah, we don't process information the same way.
But she said she didn't realize this. She just thought growing up, that's just everybody did that. And when she learned about it, when she learned that someone else was like, oh, I picture everything in my head.
Oh, so she has
This person has aphantasia, yes.
Aphantasia.
Aphantasia. That's
I'm
how
going to
she
just keep
pronounced
saying
it.
aphantasia.
I know. That's how I know it, but that's how she pronounced it, so I'm trying to go with that.
Okay.
She said when she realized that, she was like, oh, so if she's like, okay, I can do this. And she would squeeze her eyes shut really, really tight and see like white dots in her, in her vision. You know how you do that. And she says, I did it. I saw something.
Oh.
No, that's not it. So she was sure that if she asked enough people, she would find kind of an even split. So she says she's asking people in the line at the grocery store, people in line at bathrooms, everybody she ran into, she would ask them, how do you visualize in your mind? What do you see?
That's cool.
And she says she asked 463 people, and she was the only one that couldn't see images.
Holy crap.
So it's actually only about 1 to 4% of the population have aphantasia.
Wow.
Which is fascinating.
Yeah.
There is a test you can take. There's actually a range of aphantasia. It's called the Vividness of Visual Imagery Questionnaire, and I'm going to drop this link when we do the show notes. There are 5 different levels. Basically, for each scenario, you try to form a mental picture of the people, objects, or settings, and you rate how vivid this is using a 5-point scale. So 1 is no image at all. I only know that I'm thinking of the object. 2 is a dim and vague image. 3, moderately realistic and vivid. 4, realistic and reasonably vivid. And 5 is perfectly realistic, as vivid as real seeing. You've been around me long enough. What do you think I scored on this?
A 5?
A 5, all the way, which is hyperphantasic. So I have hyperphantasia, which is a remarkable ability to create extremely vivid and detailed mental imagery, which this is how, this is how I write. When I write, I see the scene, and then I have to break it down into the words.
Yeah.
And I think you do the same thing.
Pretty much, yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Some people don't, which to me is wild.
It is.
It's,
yeah.
I can't even comprehend.
I'm not sure if I would rate, I don't know if I'd be a 5, but maybe.
I'm going to send you the test to take. It's like 10 questions or something. And
Also,
it's only one indicator.
Hyperphantasia sort of sounds like a fan club for the movie Fantasia.
Also that. I am also that as well. I love that movie. I think that's one of the first Disney movies I remember seeing as a kid, like actively like, oh yes, I can remember watching this and being, kind of blown away by
That's
it.
interesting because I remember seeing a lot older Disney movies than that.
Okay, back
Anyway,
to
sorry.
Aphantasia. No, it's cool. It's fine. So basically, I looked up the word and I found all the medical things, and they all say the same thing, that it's not a condition, it's not a disease, it's not anything. It's just who you are, how you are. There's no treatment because there's nothing to treat. It's just,
Yeah.
I'm right-handed, you're left-handed, you're not, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's that same process. You're just a left-handed person, or you have aphantasia, or you don't, or you have a varying degrees of it. There is an author that I love, Evelyn Skye. We met her at Fan Fusion.
She was sweet.
She's very sweet, and she wrote Damsel for the Netflix movie, which was my introduction to her, and I want to read some of her other books, and I will one day when I read books. Anyway, she was very sweet, and she actually did a blog post because she has aphantasia, and she didn't know, she says, I never knew I was different. She says, when I was a kid, I never understood how the other preschoolers could draw such detailed, creative pictures day after day. They told me that the ideas just showed up in their heads, but in my head, it was just blank. Her drawings were very basic, and her best ones were derivatives of the other kids' drawings. So she thought she didn't have an imagination, but also she wanted to be a writer. So she talks about different professions for people who have aphantasia. And typically, those people end up in the fields of science or math, where seeing an image is not in your head.
Mm-hmm.
It's not vital to, a writer.
Yeah.
Which she is she's a New York Times bestselling writer on many levels. So she had to approach writing differently. She started to get a feel for a story. So she describes things as feelings. So she says, where others might see a movie reel in their heads, I hear, see, and feel the words. Sometimes I literally have words dancing in my head as if they're being typed out in front of me. Which she mentions, although I have a hard time seeing images, words appear clearly in my head, black font on white, which is a typographic visual imagination. And words come to her as a rhythm and a melody. I can feel their beat and flow in the center of my chest, which I think is beautiful.
That is amazing.
And I kind of, I always think of different ways that people experience things, like colorblind people.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to experience that. So she says the words come to her as a flow or a rhythm. And I found another blog post on the website psych.co, and it's written by Nisa Sunar, who is a social worker and telehealth therapist. She talks about, I have no mind's eye. Let me try to describe it for you. And she goes in to talk about aphantasia. And when she closes her eyes, she only sees darkness. It's just darkness. There's nothing else there. There's no other kind of sensory imagery. She said once she discovered this, she told friends and family about it. And when she described her darkness, when she closed her eye, people were shocked. As shocked as I am that learning about people.
Yeah.
She said that her experience seemed alien to them, and some said that visualizing things was a huge part of their understanding of life. And so she understood kind of what an active mind's eye was, but they could not understand how she didn't have it. And that's where I'm at. I just how do you not have that? And she said she got really sad because she felt like she was missing out on a basic human experience, just like missing a sight, missing a sense, like sight or hearing.
Oh.
She does say that her ability to recall memories is diminished. And the woman in the TED Talk also said that having aphantasia does affect your memory because memory is so tied to visual.
That's interesting and makes total sense.
Yeah, because you think, let me think, where did I see that? Where did I, hear that? And then you have that visual imagery. Yeah, you
kind of replay it in your head.
I do they both have, tying this to Evelyn Skye's, where she feels the words and she can see the words or feels the rhythm of the words. Nisa Sinar says she does have this type of memory, and she remembers auras. of people and the places that she's been. She says, I'm going to read. I remember the auras or distinctive quality of places I've been in, how I felt when in rooms and while outside. Based on these auras, I then remember physical appearances, which I can verbally describe despite not being able to see them. With people, I remember their auras and how I felt when socializing with them. If you were to ask me what they look like, I wouldn't be able to identify minute details, but I can describe their personalities well. And the woman in the TED Talk, she remembered verbal cues. She could remember how people reacted, their mannerisms, what they did, like with their hands, or even she would walk up to someone that she didn't know real well but had met in the past and not recognize them at all, but she would see their eyes kind of light up and they smile, and she would be like, okay, they know me, how do I know them? And kind of pick up different mannerisms from how they're approaching her to remember who they were, which to me that's like a superpower.
That is a superpower. I am so bad at that.
I'm so bad at if you have a pet, I will remember your pet. I will remember all the vital details about your pet.
Yep.
Its name, birthday, whatever. I don't know who you are, though, but I will remember your pet.
The thing about auras is also interesting because normally, like, if I think about an aura, they're usually associated with color, at least in my limited knowledge of them. But they describe it as being more like a vibe.
Right.
And just like the feeling that you get when you walk into a place. And there's definitely like, I don't know, like I think it's sometimes easy for me to pick up on the vibes of a person or a place or whatever. Sometimes not so much, but I like to think that I am sort of in tune with stuff like that, but I also rely heavily on images in my head to recall information and stuff like that. I don't often remember vibes.
Yeah, I don't. Like, how did you feel when you were in the grocery store? I don't know.
It was a grocery store.
It was a grocery store I wanted out.
Yeah.
There were way too many people.
You know, it was a typical grocery store, and then I would picture a grocery store in my mind. But, like, yeah, being able to, like, recall a vibe, an aura, is, I think that's really cool.
I think it's very cool. I think that kind of would qualify for me under superpower. Like, you have that ability. And then I need a transition here. So you have that, I'm going to say it's an ability to see this vibe or this aura, or as the other woman said, picking up on the different nuances of someone's mannerisms to help remember who they are if you're not super familiar with them.
Yeah.
I think that's very cool, and I wish I could do that. I kind of want to, like, try to focus on,
see if we can,
that, like picking up on that
particular skill.
But I would miss being able to visualize.
Well, I mean, we can't shut it off.
Actually, you can actually develop aphantasia over time. It's usually related to trauma or, like, if you have a stroke or something like that, that can actually affect, and you can develop aphantasia. It's mildly terrifying to me.
Yeah. I'm like,
I don't want to lose that. But it's very interesting. And I do remember, I want to say maybe it was a Facebook post where someone said, no, I don't visualize. And I want to go find that post and find that person and talk to them.
I'm having I am also having a memory of that Facebook post. And I think it's probably the same one. Because I remember talking to you and being like, because like at that point it was already on our list of topics. And I remember being like, hey, whenever somebody draws that card, we should reach out to that person.
Oh man, I'm so sorry that we didn't do that.
I don't remember who it was though. So like,
I don't either.
It
was months ago.
Have involved a lot of scrolling on Facebook to find the post again.
And I don't want to do that.
I mean, I guess you could use the search function and search for.
I could probably go onto my Facebook and say, hi, remember when I talked about this? Could you come? I would like to talk to you again. And they would hopefully see it.
Yeah.
I don't know. That might be, maybe we'll do that a mini episode and I'll actually talk to someone about it.
If you're listening to this.
If you're listening to this, drop us an email or message us.
Yeah, message us.
Wherever.
I mean, we're obviously friends on Facebook. So yeah, just send us a message and be like, it was me.
It was me. And we'll talk with you because I do I want to talk with someone and just be like, tell me everything about this.
I mean,
without making it weird. I don't want to make it weird, though.
Well, if you want to tell us about it, email us.
Email us.
Absolutely. Because I definitely want to hear more about it, and I want to, yeah.
It's fascinating.
So
it's
tell me more about
it. Tell you more about it. I don't know what else to tell you about it. There's actually not a lot that has been studied about it. It only just was given a name like in the last 9 or 10 years.
Yeah.
The available research indicates that it's very uncommon. As I said, it's about 1 to 4% of people. But research is limited because it's difficult to determine who has it because so many people don't realize they think differently.
Yeah.
Like it has to be kind of brought to your attention that you have this, which makes me kind of want to be like, hey, let's do a PSA. If you don't see images, please write in, to this scientific place that does research. Who does all the research? I don't know.
Scientists?
Okay.
Usually at universities.
Write your local scientist and tell them you can't see. Do it for me. So there are degrees of aphantasia, which we talked about, the 5 different levels. And that's still very basic.
Yeah. I'm sure there's like a whole gradient.
In between all those 5.
Yeah.
I saw someone mention it as the aphantasia spectrum, and I feel like that's the best way to describe pretty much everything.
Yeah.
The different degrees that are in this article, this is from clevelandclinic.org, says some people have total aphantasia and never experience mental images. Others only have it when they try to form mental images, but they may still experience brief flashes without trying, but it's gone. It doesn't stay. A small percentage of people with aphantasia only experience with closed eyes. So they can see mental images if their eyes are open, but if they close their eyes, it's nothing.
Interesting.
I want to be a neuroscientist. So
I would think it was the opposite.
I would too, because I feel like with your eyes closed, the outside world wouldn't distract you and it would allow you to focus better, but it's when their eyes are open, they can actually see visually in their mind.
That's crazy. I'm sitting here picturing Canyon de Chelly again, and my eyes are open, and I could picture it perfectly. Mm-hmm. And I also pictured it when my eyes were closed. So, maybe, is that a different... I want to say a different part of your brain?
It has to be.
I don't...
If you're a
neuroscientist
and want to talk to us about how brains work, we'd love to talk to you.
Yeah.
Brains are fascinating. Yes. That could be a whole deep dive subject there too. That could be multiple. There's probably a podcast talking about brains somewhere.
I'm sure there is. Yeah. I mean, people dedicate their whole lives to the study of the human brain.
And thank you, because I can go look up the information I need without dedicating my life to one topic. Because we're absolute Johannes factor.
We don't have the attention span.
We don't have the attention span to do that. So there is, on this clevelandclinic.org website, they talk about what causes aphantasia, and obviously they don't exactly know. There is the fact that it could be genetic. People with aphantasia are much more likely to have a close biological family member who also has it, which I find interesting. It may also be a form of neurodiversity, and it defines neurodivergent, meaning your brain develops or works differently from the brains of people whose brains developed or worked as expected or neurotypical, which define...
We were talking about that the other day, neurotypical versus neurodivergent. And there can't be a singular, I don't know,
Normal.
What
is normal?
What's the word I'm thinking of? Benchline? That's not it.
Baseline.
Thank you. For normal. Benchmark is what I was thinking.
Benchmark.
But yeah, there's not a defined normal, because how would we even know?
Exactly.
So,
right?
Yeah.
Who gets to be picked and be like, you are normal?
Yeah.
And
anyway.
I just saw that SpongeBob episode where he's goes completely normal. I am normal. I love that episode. But exactly, how do you define what is normal? So, but I think we're trying to do that with the neurotypical, neurodivergent words and meanings.
Yeah.
To kind of...
I definitely appreciate the sort of break away from thinking of people who think differently than you as abnormal or messed up.
Yeah. Abby normal.
Abby normal. There's nothing wrong
with thinking differently
just,
or processing things in a different way. And I do, yeah. Like having when neurodivergent, I guess, came on the scene, and like for me, because I don't know when the word came into use, but for me, when it made me happy, because I was like, oh, there's a word for the way my brain bounces all over the place and thinks differently and sees things differently than, someone else.
Yeah.
And I'm happy for that. So I'm glad we're getting kind of in that ability to kind of not be like, oh, you're messed up.
Yeah, not be alienating.
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
I'm down with that. Let's go. Delete that.
I'm cool with that.
Back to aphantasia.
Yeah.
See, welcome to ADHD.
Might come out. I don't know.
That's a whole weird thing. Yeah. So the congenital aphantasia, it may be genetic. You're born with it. That's just how you live. But as I said before, acquired aphantasia. In rare cases, it can be a symptom of injuries or illnesses that affect your brain, especially your occipital lobe. Head injuries such as concussion or traumatic brain injury, a stroke, and non-medical drug use. Shocking that could cause issues with your brain. Even rarer, aphantasia can happen with or maybe because of mental health conditions like mood disorders or depersonalization derealization disorder.
Define that, please.
I'm going to go define that for you right now. Depersonalization derealization disorder is a mental health condition where you feel disconnected from your body, your feelings, and your environment. It tends to come and go over a long period of time and causes distress and anxiety. Treatment may include a combination of psychotherapy and medication. So it's kind of like a detachment.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm going to do deep dive. Oh, I can just bashed into the door, maybe? I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm going to deep dive into that because sometimes I feel detached from
Yeah, well,
myself.
I mean, I wonder if is it just like a extreme form of detachment?
Maybe.
Because like the ability to detach from yourself and whatever current situation you're in is a thing that people do, but not necessarily a disorder.
Yeah, I think
maybe it's just
definitely like a more like you kind of always feel that way.
And maybe it's not like an off and on thing that you can just do. It's just I am yeah.
Yep, we are so squirrely. It's so squirrely but this is how we come up with this podcast, and this is how we find these topics, is because we find a thing and then we go, oh, what is that? Oh, what is that? What is that? So aphantasia, under the care and treatment, obviously, like I said, there's not really treatment for this because it's just a thing that you have, like being left-handed. People,
they used to try to treat
people
for that.
To treat. Oh my gosh. The past.
Yeah. silly past
silly past people. But this is the second episode I'm yelling at people in the past.
I know.
Last time I was like, write stuff down
notes.
And quit telling people to write with their right hand if they don't want to. Most people with congenital aphantasia don't realize they have it until they're teenagers or adults. So they just assume that everybody thinks the way they do until it's brought to their attention.
Yeah, it's very rare for a kid to be like, I think a certain way. I wonder if other people think that way too. But kids aren't going to have that thought. No.
So there are different ways to diagnose this. We did the vividness of visual imagery questionnaire, but they can also do CT scans, MRI scans, or EETs, which is electroencephalogram, which now I want to know exactly what that does.
Interesting.
So let's write that down as a deep dive later. But those are the ways that you can diagnose it. Obviously, the quickest one, easiest one is the VVIQ or some variation of it. And I talked about the different levels of that. Level 1 is you know what you're thinking about. You're supposed to visualize it, but you don't see anything. All the way up to level 5, you see it so clear and vividly like it's actually in front of you, which is pretty much how I live through my brain life.
Yeah.
Wait, live my.
That's how I live my brain life.
That's how my brain has worked my whole life. Let me just delete half of that sentence.
Living my best brain life.
Oh, I kind of want that on a sticker.
I'll leave that out. I'm leaving that part in.
Okay, leave that out. I love that. No, leave it in.
Leave it out. Leave it in. Living my best brain life. Not thinking of the right words.
So aphantasia isn't medical or mental health condition. It is just part of who you are. And then the next part of this article is, should a healthcare provider treat aphantasia? Acquired aphantasia almost always needs diagnosing and treatment because typically it's related to a brain injury or a brain condition. So it's kind of more of
It's like
treat the actual thing, and this
side
is
effect.
just a side effect.
Yeah.
So congenital aphantasia doesn't need medical treatment because there's nothing to treat. It does say that people with aphantasia of any type are more likely to experience emotional effects like anxiety or depression because of the challenges that this presents for them. And I guess that could lead into like career, if you want to be a writer and they're like, well, picture a scene and write it. And you're like,
That's infuriating.
how do I picture a scene and write it? What do you mean picture a scene? But I really want to write because maybe you see, like Evelyn, you see things differently, like see the words instead of a scene or imagery. So you kind of go in that direction and use what works for you. And I think that's kind of a good rule of life.
Mm-hmm.
Use what works for you to get to the place. Math. I'm looking at you. Don't tell me how to do my math. No, delete that. That's kind of pretty much all I have. There were a lot of other random articles or blog posts that I found, but they didn't really, nothing in them kind of really kicked me the way the two, Evelyn Skye and Nisa Sunar, when they talked about feeling the words or feeling the thoughts and seeing the auras and remembering someone by their aura, remembering a place by its aura, not how it appeared to you.
That's really cool.
So yeah, I don't have a whole lot I don't have a whole lot more about this. I got the TED Talk from the article on psych. Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot of more. I think like it's just I can't not say. Oh, this is a disaster.
Cool. I really think that's cool. And
I think it's very cool.
I actually, I'm totally serious. Listeners, if you have aphantasia,
Please
write to us
email
about
us.
it. Because
Yes.
I'm fascinated by it, and I want to know how you think about things. I almost said visualize things, but that's not.
But do you see the auras, or do you remember things via the vibe of a person or their mannerisms or their aura, how they are? I'm very fascinated, and I am very curious.
Yeah, I want to know.
And I am going to add one more thing because I did highlight this paragraph at the end of Nisa Sunar's article or blog post. If a cure were possible, I'm not sure I'd take it. The idea of seeing things seems scary. And that kind of, like, I read that line and I was just like, okay.
Yeah, it is kind of.
It would be.
Yeah.
I mean, seeing things sometimes can be scary.
Yeah.
Because this is why there are certain movies I can't watch because I have a very visual memory. When I watch a movie, go to bed, have a dream, and relive scenes from that movie, but it puts people I know in those. So, like, I kind of stay away from really gory horror or too many true to life, like war movies and that sort of thing. I have actual anxiety attacks and panic attacks. So, because I have hyperphantasia, which is crazy, but it's actually kind of cool because I have always thought that everybody sees as vividly as I do in my mind's eye.
Yeah.
And there are such varying degrees of it. It's really fascinating. And I hope in the future more information is studied on it and more is learned about it.
And we learn more about how people with Aphantasia recall information like that. Like, I would love, we have the 2 examples that you talked about, and I want to know more.
I do too. So again, if you have this, please, if you have this and you're listening and you would like to share your story, we would definitely like to hear from you, and we'll talk about it either in a mini episode, or we'll even, I mean, if you write us and you would want us to, we can read about it.
Yeah.
Kind of do a flashback to this episode.
You're like, hey, so-and-so wrote in.
Yeah.
And check this out.
So we have, if you would like to do that, raveniverse@gmail.com. RAVENNAVERSE@gmail.com, which again is from those original books.
Yeah. The Raveniverse.
The Raveniverse. Okay, I don't have anything else to talk about this. I feel like I talked for hours and hours last episode, and this one was really quick and short. But there's actually not a lot of information out there, so it's not my fault. What do you want to talk to me about?
Mine is also probably going to be pretty quick. This is actually something that you added to the list. At least I have no memory of adding it to the list. I did.
I'm excited.
I'm going to read a quote and see if you can guess.
Oh, no. Okay.
And I will give you a hint and say that the person that says this is the topic.
Oh,
it's a person.
Oh, it's a person.
Yes.
Okay.
A bit of natural growth is a source of greater delight to the true nature lover than the most beautiful and most highly cultivated garden.
Oh, is it Elizabeth somebody?
Close. Starts with an E.
Oh, it's the first garden, right?
Yeah.
Public garden?
The first wildflower garden in the United States.
Ah!
Eloise Butler.
Eloise.
Yes.
Good old Eloise.
Eloise Butler said that. And she started the first I keep wanting to say wildlife. That's not right. Wildflower garden in the United States.
I love her.
And probably the first public wildflower garden in all of North America.
She's awesome. She rocks.
Yeah,
I love her. I don't need
great.
to know anything more about her.
So this lady, she was a little spitfire, and I love her.
Okay, yay.
I enjoyed researching her a lot. All of my research came from the website friendsofeloisebutler.org. They talk about her, and they talk about the wildflower garden.
Aww.
And yeah, so that's where all of my sources came from.
Okay.
Oh, let's see. I do have another quote right here at the beginning of my list. I was going to read that one too before you guessed, but you're actually pretty good at guessing. And this was in an article that she wrote talking about the beauty of weeds, like vegetable plants and weeds that you wouldn't really consider pretty. They're not flowers. I sometimes think if I had any mission in this world, it is to teach the decorative value of common weeds. A weed is simply a plant out of place.
I love that.
Yeah. Okay, so Eloise Butler started this wildflower garden. It's located in what is now known as the Theodore Wirth Park in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Today, it has over 500 plant and 130 bird species in it.
I love that.
And it is called the Eloise Butler Wildflower Garden and Bird Sanctuary.
Can we go there?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to talk about Eloise first, about like her early years and stuff, because she didn't actually become the curator of this garden until she was 60 years old.
What?
Yeah.
Rock on, Eloise.
I know. This is why she's a cool lady. She was born August 3rd, 1851 in rural Maine near Appleton. While growing up, her family used to make like homemade herbal remedies in their home, and she sort of recounts that kind of sparked her love of botany. She had an aunt that taught her all about the local flora and remedies that they're used for, and she loved it.
Be careful, Eloise. I'm falling in love with you.
I know. She's great. I'm going to read a quote from her. She actually wrote a ton of articles just throughout her time at the garden and also a little bit before that. And so I'm actually going to do a lot of quotes from her and articles that she's written. And in one of those articles, she wrote a little autobiography about her early years. And I love the way she writes. She says, "Having a reticent nature, I must confess to shivering on the brink before taking the plunge into self-revelations.
I love her.
I was born not long after the middle of the 19th century in the little village of Appleton on the St. George River, about 12 miles from the seashore, Knox County, Maine. Here I lived until I was about 15, attending district and private schools, my chief amusement being then what it still is, roaming the woods. An aunt who lived with us taught my sister and me to know the plants of the neighborhood. My mother said I was abnormally good when I was a baby, but got bravely over it when I grew up. Indeed, some of the neighbors thought I must be idiotic because I lay quietly in the cradle, making no demands for attention. They said, too, that I hadn't any nose, only 2 little holes in my face where my nose ought to be. Accordingly, everyone was pinching my face in order to make the organ grow. Who can tell?
Please don't do that.
Who can tell how much my lack of good looks is due to that practice?
Oh my gosh.
I know.
I bet she had the most adorable little button nose. And they were like, make it bigger.
I saw pictures of her and like it's not bad nose. It's not tiny.
Oh my goodness. Let's pinch her nose so it grows.
Yeah. And I'll post pictures of her on our website.
Okay.
So, okay,
Please
Eloise, she went to school and became a teacher. Both of her parents were teachers. And she says at that time and place, no other career than teaching was thought of for a studious girl.
Of course, yes.
So, yeah, teaching was pretty much her only option. And she says, apparently she didn't really like it. She says, in my next incarnation, I shall not be a teacher.
I mean, same.
Yeah. She moved to Minneapolis in 1874 when she was 23, and there she resumed teaching. She had a long teaching career. She retired from teaching in 1911, but that's getting slightly ahead of the timeline here. She taught mostly botany and history. Now, switching gears a little bit to the garden. So the land where the garden is now, because of the development of the city of Minneapolis, residents were kind of getting a little sad to see nature go away. They petitioned the Board of Park Commissioners to obtain land for a park to preserve the wildlife in the area.
Oh, good for them.
Yeah, and I couldn't find an exact year of when this plot of land was set aside for that, but the desire for the park began as early as the 1800s.
Oh. Which I imagine Minneapolis in the 1800s was not nearly what Minneapolis is now.
Yeah. And so like,
good for
as
them.
soon as the land started being developed, they were like, oh, no, wait, we got to preserve some of it.
Oh, good for them.
Yeah. And nothing much was done with the park at first because it was low on funding. It just sat there for a little bit.
Here is your land.
Until
Stare at it.
the early 1900s, 1907, a newspaper reporter wrote, there was a time, and not so long ago, that some Minneapolis families could pluck these rare wildflowers almost from their back doors. But when too many people took a hand in the culling and the plucking became a massacre, the plants grew discouraged and disappeared.
Oh gosh, my heart just got so sad.
I know. And so
I
Eloise,
love how poetic was that?
yeah, like
beautifully written.
newspaper articles in the early 1900s, turn of the century, was like,
They were literature. Like,
yeah,
it was
like
good, just good writing.
Yeah.
That's beautifully written and makes me
like
sad.
Eloise was also a very skilled writer as well. She and a handful of her teachers, she was in Minneapolis at the time, they used to take botany students to this plot of land, to this park, and particularly loved one section of it because of the variety of unique native flora in the area. It was a 3-acre section of park that included a swampy bog, fern glens, hillsides, upland hills, and trees, and nearby the Great Medicine Spring, which to me sounds like a lot of stuff to include.
3 acres.
Yeah, 3 acres is not that much.
No.
But that's why they fell in love with it, I think, because it's like a
so
small
diverse.
thing that's so diverse. Yep. And so in April 1907, this group of teachers and a few community members started up a petition and presented it to the park board to set aside that portion of the park. You know what? I didn't write down what they were calling the park at that time. It's now Theodore Worth Park.
Theodore Worth. Okay.
Yeah. I think Glen something. Anyway, it was called something else back then.
Back in the day.
Back in the day. And anyway, they petitioned the park board to set aside this 3-acre plot to be a wild botanic garden.
I shout out teachers.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was really cool. And so Eloise, even though she was still teaching at the time, she became known as the mother of the garden, because she would spend all of her free time there when she wasn't teaching. But taking care of the garden wasn't a paid position.
Of course
not. And so she planned on retirement. She planned on moving back east unless another option opened up, because I guess there wasn't really anything for her. She didn't want to leave her garden. And this was in 1911. She retired. She was 60 years old. And that year in April, the Garden Club of Minneapolis started a petition, again, recommending to the park board that Eloise be named curator of the Wild Botanic Garden, and that it be set aside as a permanent wildflower garden. Because before it was known as a wildflower garden, but it wasn't like official. It was just a section of the park.
Yeah, that's where the wildflowers are.
Yeah. And the petition got several hundred signatures.
Yay.
Was met with no opposition when passed through all the committees and
Yay.
whatever. I know. And then by June of that year, Eloise was officially named the first curator of the Wild Botanical Garden, a paid position.
Yay!
And I think I read somewhere, I didn't write this down, but I read somewhere that she got paid $80 a year.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
For the season it was open, because it would close during the winter.
Okay.
But yeah, she's 60 years old. She landed her dream job.
Okay, there's hope.
Yeah. And when she took the position of curator, she talked about her vision for the garden. She said, and this is a quote, "My wild garden is run on the political principle of laissez-faire. A paramount idea is to perpetuate in the garden its primeval wildness. All artificial appearances are avoided, and plants are to be allowed to grow as they will and without any check except what may be necessary for healthful living."
I love her.
Yeah.
I love her so much.
She was obsessed with just walking through the bogs and the glens and the fields and whatever, and just gathering samples of wildlife. She wanted to include all plants native to the area, plus those that are not native that would still grow there. So she became just this mad collector of plants.
This is my new dream.
I know. The years from 1912 to 1916 were devoted to the expansion of the plant collection and of the park itself. In those years alone, 262 new species were introduced,
Holy cow.
plus the numerous additions and replantings of species already present. The introduction of species never ceased. Even now, they're still working to add to it.
I want to go to there.
And then even in 1932, her last full year as a curator, 11 new species were introduced just in that year.
This woman had a dream, and she lived it.
Yeah,
and I'm so happy
there was
for her.
never a year without new introductions and replantings. I have here in my notes that she would often go collecting with her older sister, Cora.
Aw.
Cora was quoted to say, "Such was our greed for new varieties that we always extended our rambles until, from fatigue, we felt as though we could never reach home."
My goodness.
Eloise frequently lamented that this ground had been all gone over by scientists and nothing was left for her to discover. No ledge was so steep and jagged as to be insurmountable. If there was a suspicion of vegetation on the crevices at the top, no bog so miry, and no brook so deep and wide. Miry? And no brook so deep and wide as to be impassable if there was a prospect of discoveries on the opposite bank. So the two of them would just go collect samples together.
I love that she was this quiet child who went and rambled around in the woods and found out what she loved.
Yeah.
And then got stuck in teaching because that was all she could really do.
Yeah.
But in the end, she got to just ramble.
You say stuck in teaching, but she still found a way to spread the love.
She did. She taught what she knew.
I also didn't write this down, but in my research, I did read that one of her students went on to become the first female professor hired at some college
Oh,
in
yay.
Minneapolis. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So like she sparked that love in other people.
And when
Even
I
though
say
she says she didn't like teaching.
yeah, that's what I mean. Stuck in teaching.
Yeah,
She
I
didn't
know.
particularly like it or wouldn't have chosen
like
that
she
career.
would rather be out in the fields instead of in a classroom.
I mean,
And-
wouldn't we all?
Yeah, for sure. And actually, again, didn't write this part down, but I remember reading someone said in a magazine article about taking one of her classes that you better be prepared to go out in the mud, in the bog.
I want to go back in time and take her classes.
Yeah. So while she was curator of this garden, she was fiercely protective of it. Actually, even before she was curator, pretty much when the garden started in 1907, she was like, this place is cool. I must love it. I must protect it. She became known as the park policeman. And this is adorable. She wore a little tin sheriff's badge.
Oh my gosh.
It's so cute.
I love her.
The size of the garden grew, and in her annual report to the park board in 1912, so this was after she became curator, she wrote, "Another cause for congratulations is the generous extension of the garden limits by the addition of an adjacent hillside and meadow." So the park's growing. It's great.
Yay.
The labor of the curator would be materially lightened if the garden were fenced. This is her quoting. I'm quoting her. So she's like, the labor of the curator, me, thank you,
Yeah.
would be materially lightened if the garden were fenced and more warning signs posted.
You can come in my garden, but you have to obey my rules.
Yes.
know.
She says, "'Tis true, 'tis pity, and pity 'tis true, that a small proportion of our citizens have not yet learned to name the birds without a gun, or to love the wood rose and leave it on its stalk."
Oh. But that's very forward thinking for that time period.
Yeah.
I remember when we went to the Field Museum in Chicago and they talked about how much was brought into the museums, like hundreds of taxidermied animals and flowers and seeds and all of this stuff was just brought in like practically by the truckloads, that even now, 100 years later, they haven't finished cataloging everything and they're discovering new
things.
species.
Yeah.
And I love that yes, let's learn about this, but let's learn about it where it is.
Yeah, we have to preserve it in its natural environment.
Which for that time period was not at all
Yeah.
the typical.
Yeah. It's
you know.
let's take this and move it somewhere else and study it.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was all about getting up in the bog.
I love her.
One of the pictures that I love the most, and I'll post this in the notes too on our website, is of her like balancing on a stump of a fallen tree in a bog, and she's wearing like full on dress.
Yeah.
The hat piled high with flowers that was like the fashion of the time, and it's just like covered in mud. Her dress is ripped and torn.
Oh my
it's
gosh.
so cool. And she's just like bending over to look at some algae or whatever. She loved algae. That was like her favorite thing to collect. And there's actually a species of algae named after her.
Oh, yay.
And again, did not write that down, but I will.
Yes,
I'll put it
I
in
wanna
the
know
notes.
what that is.
Yeah. I couldn't pronounce it anyway. It's got a scientific name.
Yeah, scientific name.
So by 1913, the garden had grown to include 20 to 25 acres.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
it went from this little 3-acre plot of land to 20 to 25. And I don't have an exact number because she was quoted to have said both in 2 different articles.
Okay.
So I think it was in the process of expanding more. So we'll say 25 acres.
Yeah.
The garden didn't actually get a fence until 1924.
Oh, goodness.
And she put it up herself.
Oh, Eloise is not having none of this no fence stuff.
Yeah. In 1921, she wrote in an article in the Minneapolis Tribune, "It's not the wild, voracious mosquito. It's not the snooping vagabond dog, nor is it the pussyfooting feline, but it's the demon surreptitious spooner that's brought the need for an encircling barbed wire fence around the Wildflower Garden in Glenwood Park." Glenwood Park, that's the name.
Glenwood Park. Okay.
"To save plants of incalculable scientific value from destruction. A stray cat will pitter-patter into the garden and leave a narrow trail. A dog seeking food, perhaps in the shape of a rabbit, will snoop through and leave a wider wallow, but the spooning couple..."
Goodness.
"For destructive properties, the army of tussock worms is a piker when compared with the spooner."
The spooning couple.
The spooning couple. Beware the spooning couple, because they will destroy your garden.
They will destroy your garden. My goodness.
So like I said, Eloise, she's a little spitfire. She wrote a ton of articles to the Minneapolis Tribune and various botany papers and things like that. I have a few of her writings. I want to read an entire article from her. And it's a short one.
I do too. I want to read. Okay. You are. Oh, you're going to read one.
I'm going to read it.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah,
I was like, can we just find all of her articles and I just want to read them?
I have a link.
Oh, yay.
That lists all of the things.
Yay.
And she wrote about everything. She told stories about the garden, care guides to various plants found in it. She wrote articles about the beauty of common weeds, like from that quote earlier. The acquisition of a bird bath. She was super happy about that.
Oh, yay.
And she wrote about a time when her hat caught fire in the garden.
Oh, my goodness.
And she even wrote a couple stories about the occult.
Oh, interesting.
Which is funny because I read them and I was like, that's not really the occult, but we'll get into that though. I have the article about the burning hat.
Okay,
and it's just a short one, but I love the way she writes. So this one was in 1911, the first year that she became curator, and it is titled "The Burning Hat." She says, "While I am about it, although destroying the literary unity of my paper, but where may one not ramble, if not in a wild garden, I will give a more complete idea of how we have fought, bled, and nearly died for the cause by recounting another adventure that might really be called a hairbreadth escape. I took 2 boys to the wild garden to help clear up the fallen brushwood and to put the place in order for the spring awakening. I was working some distance from them. Going near them to direct their work, I was astounded by their running to me, shouting at the top of their voices and beating me excitedly over the head. Do not form a hasty conclusion. They were young gentlemen, and what they did was perfectly right and proper.
Oh my goodness.
I had been attending to the burning of the brush. In some way, a spark had kindled on the top of my hat, and I had been moving serenely about, emitting flames and smoke like a small volcano.
Oh my goodness.
While a crater was forming in the crown of my hat.
Oh my goodness.
I had been wondering all the while at the peculiar odor of the burning brush and supposing, when blinded and choked by the smoke, that the wind had veered since the starting of the fire. If the boys had not been at hand, the accident might have been serious. As it was, my hat was a charred ruin, and my hair, which I could ill afford to lose, was about 1/4 burned away.
Oh my goodness. No.
Some visitors came into the garden during the afternoon, but I sent everyone home and waited alone until it was dusk, skewering my hat together with safety pins and filling up the hole in the crown with a big rose that had survived the fire.
Oh my goodness.
I hoped that in the crowd on the streetcar and darkness, my peculiar headgear would pass unnoticed.
Because it was very improper to be for a lady without a hat.
But that's the end of the article. That's the story.
That's her story.
And I love what she said about the boys. Do not form a hasty conclusion. They were young gentlemen, and what they did was perfectly fair and proper. Right and proper.
Aw, I love them.
I know.
That's hilarious. I could just see her. She's like, oh man, this brush smells terrible.
It smells weird. Why does it smell like that? I guess the wind shifted.
Oh, the wind shifted. Now the smoke's right in my face. Oh, so bothersome. I'm trying to prepare the garden for its awakening.
I had been moving serenely about, emitting flames and smoke like a small volcano.
Oh, I love her. I want to go back in time and meet her.
Yes.
She'll probably yell at me because
we'd be in the garden. We want to go off the path.
I know. But maybe I would carefully go
No,
off
she
the
wouldn't
path.
let you. No, she wouldn't let you. She'd flash her sheriff's badge.
Miss
Get off the
Eloise,
path.
please, I want to go look at that flower over there. Please.
I won't touch it, I promise.
I want to go sit and draw all the flowers.
I'm not a spooner.
I'm not a spooner, I promise. So not a spooner.
Oh, man. Okay, so I have I'm going to talk about a couple more articles she wrote in.
Okay, cool.
And these ones were more centered around the occult, is what she called them. And I just did finger quotes.
Finger quotes. I
the
saw
occult.
them. Okay.
one of them is she tells a story about when she was looking for leatherwood to collect for her garden because she liked the look of leatherwood and she remembered it being in the area at one point, but it had died out.
Okay.
Where she would go collect it. And a student told her, oh, I saw some, a town over or something like that. And so she went to go collect some leatherwood and she was looking and looking and looking and couldn't find any. And then she had given up and was heading home back to a road to find a streetcar. And she wrote, suddenly without conscious volition, but obeying a blind, unreasoning impulse, I turned and plunged on a beeline into the woods. Eloise Butler, I said to myself, what are you doing? You are due at home. But on I went and walked directly into a pocket lined with leatherwood in full blossom, a place that I had never visited before. The whole affair seemed uncanny to me. So later...
She ties this to the occult. How?
Later, out of curiosity, she went to go see... She says... Out of curiosity, as I have no belief in spiritualistic phenomena, she visited a medium who was visiting the family.
Okay.
Yeah. And the medium said to her, when you want a plant, you always find it. And then explained that this is because you have two friends on the other side who are botanists.
Okay.
And really like what you're doing.
Oh.
And whenever you need to find a flower or plant of any kind, they just give you a little push on the shoulders.
Okay.
And that's what that medium said. And Eloise jokingly was like, oh, that explains the thing with the leatherwood. But then there were 3 other times that she said she put that to the test, that little theory about her little botanist friends on the other side.
Okay.
And you didn't see me, but I just rolled my eyes.
I saw you. And
yeah.
I agree.
She said she was looking for, well, she gave the scientific name, but it's called downy gentian. I had never gathered the plant. I only knew that it grew on the prairie. So I betook myself to the prairie and hunted until I was tired. Then I bethought myself of my ghostly friends and murmured, now I will let them push me. Thereupon, I wandered about without giving thought to my steps and was just thinking, the spell won't work this time. When my feet caught in a gopher hole and I stumbled and fell headlong into a pitch of downy gentian.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Don't tempt the ghost.
You know how skeptic, I'm
I know.
like so skeptic.
I am also a skeptic. But yeah, I think that it's funny that like every time she would go out collecting and look for things and not be able to find them, she'd just be like, I'll let them push me. Let's see what happens. I don't believe in you.
But I kind of
give me
feel
a
like,
push.
do you ever sometimes when you're looking for, I need to find this one certain thing for a certain reason, you can never
don't
ever find it.
Yeah.
And then you just randomly stumble across it and you go, there it is.
Yep.
I've been looking for it for months.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm not looking for it, that's when it pops up.
Yep. Yeah.
So I
it happens a lot.
yeah,
Probably not because of ghosts.
probably not because of your 2 botanist friends on the other side, but I love that she
Yeah.
was skeptic and was like, well, let me just let them.
Yeah,
give
I'll
me a
let them
nudge,
push
you
me.
know?
And then she fell over into
Fell
a
over.
patch of...
Okay.
Oh, they
Oops.
actually
They
pushed her that time.
Thanks. You really didn't have to actually
Sure,
push
your
me.
foot was caught in a gopher hole. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it was the ghosts, Eloise.
The ghost, Eloise.
Stop being such a skeptic.
Be a skeptic, Eloise. Everything can be debunked.
So another thing she wrote about was, and she started this article by saying, of course, being New England born, I don't believe in ghosts.
Isn't New England like the most haunted
I
part
don't
of the
know.
country? It
Maybe
feels
not.
I feel like everybody's got haunting stories up there.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so funny. I want to hear what you're going to say, but
Yeah.
when you first said she was born like in the 1860s, or no,
1851.
and her family gathered plants and did medicinal, I was like, witches.
Were they witches?
I was like, witches, they're
Yep,
witches.
They were witches.
Because what, the medicine woman was often the witch.
Yeah.
You know?
But no.
But
because being New England born, of course you
of
don't
course
believe in
not.
ghosts.
Wait. Say that? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, read your
I
article.
thought that was interesting too. She says, but years ago, when Glenwood Lake was known as Keegan's Lake, an old hermit lived in a cave in the woods. Suddenly he disappeared. 3 months later, a body was discovered, which was believed to be his. He was never seen again. And she tells the story of when she was in the garden. And this was at the time, this old hermit, I forgot to mention, they called him Old Andrew. He lived in a cave, and sometimes you could hear him cut wood, just out chopping wood.
Okay.
Outside of his cave. Because I think, I don't remember now, but it seems like I read that he would do that to earn money.
Oh, okay.
He would chop wood for people.
Okay.
But yeah, he lived in this cave.
Please tell me
He
that
disappeared
somewhere
one
she hears
day.
chopping of wood.
That is exactly what happened. Shortly after the body was found, Old Andrew's cave was included in the park. So like borders are expanding again.
Okay.
And she was in the park and her work was interrupted when she heard chopping of wood. And she went to go tell whoever
she got
it was
her sheriff
to get
badge
out.
and she says, "Get out of my
Yeah,
park."
she was like, not in my
not in
park.
my
You're
park."
chopping down trees in my park? No.
No.
And so she goes to where the sound of the axe was coming from, and it was by Old Andrew's cave. And nobody was there. And
Spooky.
that actually happened a few times. She would hear wood chopping and go toward the sound of the wood. And she would always find herself at Old Andrew's cave.
Well, now I need the true crime story of what happened to Old Andrew.
I know, but do you want to know what she did?
Did she put up a sign that said "Stop chopping trees"?
No.
Okay.
I'm sure there were already signs there. After checking out the cave, she said, "At the bottom of the rubbish, I found a big old boot. I buried it deep and planted violets and trillium on top.
Aw.
And whatever the reason, the sound of the axe was heard no more."
Oh, my little
I
heart.
know. So she gave the boot a little burial,
Aw.
and the axe, she never heard the axe anymore.
That's sweet.
So-
I love that she planted the little flowers, made the little memorial
that's so
for
cute.
him.
Like she buried the boot and planted flowers over it, which is like, for someone who doesn't believe in ghosts, like, yeah. I mean, you could still respect people.
Yeah, I mean, please
I guess-
still respect people.
Yeah, I guess in her mind, she wasn't like, I'm going to get the sound of the wood chopping to go away by,
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just, I found Old Andrew's boot. I'm going to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aw.
And I thought that was sweet.
That is sweet.
But planted violets and trillium on top.
Aw, I
It
love
was cute.
violets. They're very pretty flowers.
So she was curator of the garden until 1932. Well, that was her last full year as curator.
So she
And-
started in 1911. So she was like 72-ish, somewhere in her 70s?
She was
80s. Oh, I can do math.
81.
Okay.
Yeah. She
30. Oh, okay. I can do math.
Yeah. Math. She still spent a lot of her time in the garden after no longer being the curator. But sadly, a year later is when she died.
Oh.
It was April 10th in 1933. She was on her way to her garden. She lived nearby, just within walking distance. She was on her way to it and had a heart attack.
Oh.
And she did manage to get home before she passed away. But there are some rumors that she died in her garden, which is kind of poetic.
I'm going to
like,
say
I
that
understand
she did.
a woman like that and the history that she built and this place that she built. You want to believe that she died there.
Aw.
Her ashes were scattered in the garden, though.
Aw. Yay.
Yeah.
That's-
That's all.
I love
my
that.
notes just kind of end there, but yeah, she seemed like a really cool lady.
Yay. I'm so glad you got that and we got to talk about her. I have to ask you something.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned bog and a lake there. Do you think growing in that bog and lake there was wild celery?
Oh my gosh.
This is my life goal now.
I mean, I can look it up.
Well, because
'Cause I hate
celery, wild celery
No,
is
I
an
get it.
underwater grass. And I just looked it up, and that is actually part of the area where it does grow?
You know what? I'm gonna hang on. I'm gonna Google search this. Hang on. Where are my notes?
I'm sorry, I had to. It's mostly known in the
You know
Chesapeake
what?
Bay, but
If wild celery did grow there, she wouldn't let anybody pick it.
no.
So I'm fine with that.
Okay. I'm sorry. I was thinking the whole time. I was listening so intently, and I love Miss Eloise, and I love her garden, and I want to go there. It is now on my travel bucket list, even though I don't think I've ever really wanted to specifically go to Minneapolis. But here we are. I do now.
Yeah.
I have been in the Minneapolis airport.
I don't know what else is in Minneapolis, so I don't know.
Prince's home, which is now a museum. I would go to that too. Wild celery. It's actually an underwater grass.
I looked up Minnesota's Department of Natural Resources, and yeah, common names: water celery, eelgrass, or tapegrass. Location: lakes in depth up to 15 feet and streams. Prefers semi-hard bottoms such as sand covered with a thin layer of muck.
I'm going to say that Miss Eloise, made sure this was growing in her garden.
Probably.
And we're going to have to go there.
The importance of the plant is that it provides shade and shelter for bluegills, young perch, and largemouth bass. Choice food of waterfowl, particularly diving ducks, attracts muskrats, marsh birds, and shorebirds. And it is a bird sanctuary, too.
Okay, I'm sure it is. It's actually kind of pretty in this picture that I have here. It's very pretty. It's the light's kind of dappling it green.
That is pretty.
I would not go in the water where that is because I could not see, and it would terrify
absolutely
me.
not.
I would feel that on my feet, and I would be like, nope, right out of there. But maybe if I had like some big waders or wellies where I didn't feel it, I could just walk in.
My welly boots. The whole time I was reading about her in the bog, I kept thinking about that guy. I was
Lovely
like,
bog.
He would go traipsing through the bog.
She would chase him out of her bog.
Lovely bog provided.
She would chase him out of her bog. Get out of my bog. You spooner. Anyway. I love Miss Eloise Butler.
Yeah, and so
the first garden.
This wildflower garden is still, you can visit it right now, today. I mean, not right now because it's actually closed for the winter.
It's what is it called, Theodore? I want to see.
It's called the Eloise Butler Wildflower Garden and Bird Sanctuary in Theodore Worth Park in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
So if you're in the Minneapolis area and you've been there, oh, look at her, adorable on her tree.
That's the picture of her in the bog.
She's my hero.
Yeah.
I can't remember where I learned about her or how she got on our list.
Yeah, I have no memory of that.
I was just like, oh, the first wildflower garden in the country. Yeah, I have no memory of how she got on our list, but I'm so glad we got to talk about her.
Yeah.
She's my hero.
Yeah. She's a cool
I just love this wild, woodsy woman in like the early 1900s.
Yeah,
when
in full dress and hat.
Full dress and hat in the bog, just tromping around finding everything.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for telling me about someone that I put on the list.
Yay.
And she's my new little hero, and I love her.
She is. Ah! Oh. Sorry, my tablet just fell. It's fine.
It's fine.
It's okay. I saved it. Okay. Nobody panic.
Nobody panic.
I just closed
Too late.
Backwards.
I've already panicked. I've double panicked.
Panicking.
I'm panicking. This is our episode 2.
Episode 2.
And we haven't yet released episode 1, or I would talk about how many hundreds of thousands of people listen to us.
We can't say that.
Delete that part. Okay. This is episode 2 of our podcast, and I'm so excited to be here. And
should we maybe draw topics for next time?
We should draw topics for next time.
Okay, I drew my card first last time.
Okay, I'll draw my card first.
Did you shuffle these?
Well, yes, but go ahead and shuffle them again, please. Okay. Did you know that Jess once told me that she has the uncanny ability to split a deck of cards almost perfectly in half?
Not almost perfectly.
Oh, exactly in half?
There are 52 cards in a deck, and I can split it in half.
I want to go get... This deck doesn't actually have 52 cards because we don't have 52 subjects.
Nope.
But I want to go get a deck of cards, and we're going to kick off episode 3 with you splitting it exactly in half.
Okay. All right. There we go.
Okay, I'm going to draw a card.
Okay.
If you would like to hear us talk about something, you can send in
You can
a
keep
topic.
listening to this podcast.
You can keep listening to this podcast. Oh! I'm excited for this one.
Okay, I'm going to draw mine. Okay.
Tell me what it is. Tell me what it
I
is.
can't. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy. This is going to be great.
Okay, we have to go do research
I
so we
am
can record
so
our next episode,
incredibly-
so I don't have to wait a
Oh
week
my
to know what this
goodness.
is.
Oh my gosh. This is, I mean, I'll just say, it's timely.
Timely.
That's the only thing you're going to get from me about it.
Timely how? I have to go look at the podcast list, the list of topics. What? You can't do that for me.
It's a good one.
Okay.
I'm so excited.
I'm just like staring at the list of topics here, and now I need to know. Okay. No, it's good. I can't wait until we record again and I can know what topic you are going to be working on. And I'm excited for mine too.
It's going to be good. I'm very excited.
If there's something you would like us to talk about, a topic that interests you, that you think is fun, you'd like to hear us talk about, please send it into our email.
Yes,
At
that would be the best way for us to keep track of it.
Absolute best way.
Yeah.
Because we need to stay organized.
Yes. It's going to get lost if you tried to send it to us in a message.
Anywhere else, we will lose it. I promise you. Even if we say, I won't lose that, I'm going to put it on the list right now. It will get lost.
It won't get put on the list right then.
It won't. But yeah, send us topic ideas. If you feel so inclined, please give us a good review.
Yeah.
We'd love to have that. And we would also love for you to join us on Patreon.
Yeah. At the very least, you can sign up for our newsletter on our website, jessandhids.com. That's also where you can find our contact information, all the relevant links to all the things. Our Patreon link is on there. Our social media.
Facebook, Instagram links are on there.
Yeah. You can
That's
sign up
about-
for our newsletter. Our email is also in the contact section. And the events, the fun events we have coming up are there. And updates and stuff.
Yeah. All the fun things, jessandhids.com.
Yeah.
Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Yay.
Bye.
Bye.